with Truth here, and it's time for more Otaku Evolution. Be sure to like, subscribe, and contribute to my Patreon. Well, it's time we wrap up Patlabor with a look at the second Patlabor OVA, which continues from the end of the TV series, Patlabor The New Files. Ah, Patlabor. What an underrated mecha series. I mean, it's hardly the only mecha series that concentrates on the character interaction rather than the giant robots, but I really like the way it executes it. You get the impression that these characters are living real lives over the backdrop of a police and mecha series. And there's a variety of moods to the franchise. It can be a slice-of-life comedy, a mecha action romp, even a gripping political thriller. For those unfamiliar with Patlabor, it takes place in the Japan that makes use of giant construction robots called labors. Because of an uptick in labor-related crimes, Special Vehicle Section 2, which uses patrol labors or Patlabors to counter criminals, is formed. The first division is the elite team, but the series doesn't revolve around them. Instead, it concentrates on Division 2, a quirky bunch known for their less than impressive track record resolving labor crimes.
I'm within firing range.
Set your target, but keep your finger off that trigger.
Come on, don't you know that this guy won't listen to reason? He who shoots first wins!
Ota, please conduct yourself like a police officer.
Noa, draw your gun!
But...
That thing's a monster! No time for second thoughts!
Our central hero is Noa Izumi, the upbeat pilot of a Patlabor she named Alphonse. She adores labors, especially hers, occasionally to the detriment of a mission. She can be a little naive and impetuous, but overall, her bright outlook instills in the proceedings a positive vibe. Her commander in the field is Asuma Shinohara, scion of the Shinohara family, which owns labor producer Shinohara Heavy Industries. He's clever, honest to the point of bluntness, and multi-talented. He's not as rosy as Noa, though, being somewhat cynical and sardonic. He clearly has a soft spot for Noa, but nothing seems to come of it. Isao Ota is a downright menace. He's another Patlabor pilot, and is pretty talented at it, but his hot head and obsession with firearms makes him a dangerous combination. He fancies himself an exemplary peacekeeper, but he's the cause of a lot of Division 2's failures. His tendency to resolve every problem with violence makes him a headache for his teammates and superiors alike. But deep down inside, he's not such a bad guy. Mikiyasu Shinshi is a henpecked salaryman type, mostly a mousy pushover who often seems exhausted. His talent for computer programming is wasted on his position as carrier driver. Although usually timid, occasionally he will snap and become truly frightening. Hiromi Yamazaki is the gentle giant that can't even fit into a regular labor. He's a man of few words, preferring to tend to SV2's greenhouse tomatoes and the chickens that supply them with eggs. He gets along pretty well with everyone, never really creating any waves. Takeo Kumigami is Ota's commander in the field, replacing my beloved Kanuka Clancy. Like Kanuka, she's uber competent, with multiple areas of expertise and the ability to rein in Ota. She's not as forceful as Kanuka, preferring a lighter but still firm touch. Her one weakness is her fear of the supernatural. She has a habit of fainting when spooked. Probably my favorite character, Captain Kiichi Godo, is the leader of Division 2. He has a very casual, lackadaisical attitude on the surface, but is actually very clever and calculating, preferring to manipulate his subordinates to getting his hands dirty himself. He never pilots a labor, but his working behind the scenes can be just as effective as any giant robot. He also has a thing for Division 1's commander, Captain Shinobu Nagumo, but this is Patlabor, so the romance never really materializes. Patlabor The New Files wraps up the Griffin arc of the TV series, as the shady Shaft Enterprises scheming labor development division rears its head again. Richard Wong continues to mentor the young Bud, using him to test the Griffin labor in Tokyo, challenging the SV2. It takes all hands on deck, including a returning Kanuka, to handle the Griffin, with even Division 1's new labors falling by the wayside. Oddly enough, the 4 episodes of the Griffin arc here are the only episodes of the New Files to be dubbed into English. There are 16 episodes. So, yeah, you'll be reading subtitles for parts of this video. because I mostly want to highlight my favorite episodes, and none of them are dubbed. But I promise it'll be worth it.
Zurukoi
そうじゃないでしょ。なんなら手錠使いましょうか。
いや、結構、もうしません。
The majority of high-octane action takes place in those 4 Griffin-related episodes, after which there's basically only standalones right up to the very end. There's an episode where Noah has a toothache and acts down and out over it. That's the episode. That's the entire episode. There's an episode where a children's show mascot takes his fellow castmates hostage on live TV. There's an episode where Division 2 has to root out a criminal at a bathhouse. There's the one where Engineer Chief Sasaki burns all the other engineers' porn magazines and they go crazy after a while. That one just kind of peters out at the end. There's an episode at a spa where Kumigami and Kanuka clash. An amnesia murder mystery episode written by Mamoru Oshii himself, that's kind of neat. And Noah finds a dying kitten in one episode and she and others nurse it back to health. And then there's this fever dream of an episode where Noah turns out to be Ultraman?
Oh, Ingraman!
Fine episodes all, to be sure. Well, some of them. But honestly, for the purposes of this video, I couldn't give less a crap about them. I mean, Noah gets a toothache, a kitten gets loose in Alphonse, the children's TV show one? Come on, Patlabor, the new files. You started off with a Griffin arc, and you want to go from that to this? Give me a break. It's a good thing there are at least 3 standout episodes to highlight, and they might be the best episodes Patlabor has ever had. The first episode I want to highlight is the one where Captains Goto and Nagumo are driving back from a conference in a wild storm. Most of the first half of the episode is just them talking in the car, trying to figure out where to go in the downpour. Goto suggests that they stop at a hotel for the night, but all that's open are love hotels. An embarrassed Nagumo relents, but to Goto, a love hotel is as good as any place to sleep. The two end up in a strange room resembling a children's playroom, to their mortification. There's some tension between the two during the night, but like I said, this is Patlabor, where everybody gets blue balls. And blue ovaries, I guess? It's nothing deep, but it's great to see them work off each other in a different situation. The only time you get anything similar to this is in the second Patlabor movie. What makes the captains such compelling characters is that they're both really intelligent, but they live their lives kind of clumsily socially. Goto is always hiding his cleverness from others so that people will underestimate him, and Nagumo is comically serious, rarely ever letting her guard down to let herself be human. They each can be more of themselves with each other, but there's always a little left out, words unsaid, something held back, no matter how close they get. It's that tension that makes situations with them together interesting.
大丈夫？しっかりしてよ。
ご褒美欲しいな。
なんの？
ドライバーの役目務め合わせたらね、一緒に温泉行かない？
そうね。麻布十番温泉とか祖師ヶ谷温泉とか都内の温泉なら行けるかもね。
ああ、そう。日帰りでね。
The second episode I want to go over is probably my favorite, called Snow Rondo, and it revolves around Asuma. When he receives an invitation to a class reunion, he reconnects with a woman who he once had a crush on when they were in school. The two go out on a few dates, but she always seems to disappear mysteriously during them. One day, he spots her during an incident at work, but nobody else sees her. After visiting him at work, the woman disappears one last time, leaving Asuma wondering if he ever saw her to begin with. The atmosphere of this episode is excellent. It's a dreamlike mystery. Like Asuma, you can't be entirely sure that his relationship with his former classmate is even real. The episode creates just enough doubt to make you think it could have all been his imagination or something like it. The snow, the red umbrella and balloon, the disappearing and reappearing of the woman, it all makes you scratch your head. It's a strangely emotional, sentimental story, not just a thinker. We see the dreamlike relationship Asuma has with a classmate in comparison to the very real relationship he has with Noa. The episode was written by Yutaka Izubuchi, who created Razafon and also worked on Char's Counterattack, Record of Lodos War, and Space Battleship Yamato 2199. But this is clearly my favorite thing he's done in anime. It's an absolute brilliant 25 minutes of television.
申し訳ありません。もう時間なんですが。どうかなさったんですか？数日前確かに署名を。いえ、もしよかったらどうぞ。
The third episode I want to discuss is the final episode of the new files. It has 3 story threads. The first is Noa's search for an item she has lost. She searches all over for it. The second thread is Kumigami's desire to start a 3rd division for SV2. And the third is Asuma's visit to the Shinohara family grave with Noa. Surrounding these things is just the everyday, mostly quiet life of Division 2 when they're not on call. The viewer is given the impression, however, that things won't remain quiet or the same for very long, as the future is just around the corner for these characters. There's a reckoning with the past in this episode, to be sure. Asuma reveals a dark, sad secret he's been keeping from his teammates involving his family. At the grave, he encounters his father, who he had never had a good relationship with. But instead of admonishing him or running off, the usually combative Asuma decides to stay and talk things out with him. We don't hear the conversation, but we really don't need to. Everything is said in the setting in Kenji Kawai's heartfelt soundtrack. In the final scene, we discover what it was that Noa was looking for the whole episode, before the team is called out on another incident, ending the episode and the series.
子供の時のだからね。誕生日にお父ちゃんが買ってくれたの。
この間の探し物ってそれ？
ええ。
しかしよく持ってたな。
大事なものはそう簡単になくしたりできませんよ。
置き忘れてもか？うん。
キャッチボールし。
It's a low-key finale to the series, eschewing any high-stakes final battle or ground-shaking change in the status quo, for a nice little story about these characters going about their everyday lives, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And someday it will, but for now what they have is each other, and that's good enough. It's a nice little epilogue. The only thing that would have made this better is if they had waited to wrap up the Griffin arc just before this episode, making it a nice little period at the end of the sentence. Overall, Patlabor the New Files probably isn't the strongest Patlabor material. I mean, outside those episodes I highlighted, there's a whole lot of mediocrity. There's an episode that's just a sequel to another mediocre episode from the TV series. But even mediocre Patlabor is still better than a lot of other anime out there, and the episodes I did go over are really excellent in addition to the aforementioned Griffin wrap-up. If you've already seen the TV show, you might as well finish it off with this OVA. Anyway, that's another short video from me. I'll try not to make it a habit, but I don't think the next video will be very long either, because it's for a very middle-of-the-road Lupin special. Until then, see ya!
What? What are you doing?
Oh, wherefore art thou a cop? Or not.